hope you brought snacks. Get ready to ride this timeline. What if one of the most powerful religious centers in ancient South America built its influence less through armies than through darkness, stone, water, sound, and controlled fear? High in the Peruvian Andes, Chavin de Huantar became one of the most important ceremonial centers in the ancient Andes. It flourished roughly between 900 and 200 BCE, and what made it famous was not just its stone art or its age. It was the way the whole place seems designed to shape human experience. This was a temple complex, a pilgrimage center, and a place where ritual specialists may have used architecture itself as a tool of power. Chavin de Huantar sat in a strategic and symbolically important location. The site lies near the meeting point of the Mosna and Huachesca rivers, close to routes that linked the Pacific coast, the highlands, and the eastern lowlands. That mattered. Pilgrims, goods, ideas, and artistic styles could all move through this region, and Chavin became a place where those worlds met. It was not some magical mother culture that created everything that came later, but it was a major ceremonial center where older traditions came together and took especially powerful form. The temple complex grew over time. Scholars usually describe two major building phases: the Old Temple, which began around 900 BCE, and the New Temple, which came later around 500 BCE. The site included plazas, terraces, stone-faced buildings, and carefully planned ceremonial spaces. But the feature that gives Chavin its special pull is what lies inside and below. The temple was threaded with narrow interior passageways, usually called galleries. These were not just rough leftover spaces. They formed a maze-like system inside the temple, some connected, some isolated, all deeply important to the ritual life of the site. Many were dark and windowless, with only small vents allowing air to move through. This was a place built to control what people saw, heard, and felt. That is where the story becomes genuinely eerie in the best historical sense. Imagine arriving as a pilgrim in a monumental ceremonial center, surrounded by carved stone images of human-animal beings, hearing strange sounds, and then being led into a dark interior space. You are no longer standing in a public square. You are entering a controlled environment, one built to take away your bearings. Researchers have argued that these ritual spaces were carefully designed to separate insiders from outsiders and to create restricted, staged experiences. In other words, the architecture itself may have helped religious elites build authority. At the center of this hidden world stood the Lansone. The Lansone is one of the most famous sculptures in ancient Andean archaeology. It is a tall, carved stone monolith, more than 15 feet high, set deep within the old temple where several galleries intersect. It depicts a supernatural being that mixes human and animal features, especially traits associated with predators and serpents. Its upward-looking eyes, fangs, claws, and dense, hard-to-read imagery make it feel deliberately overwhelming. Even the name Lansone is modern and somewhat misleading. The shape may actually resemble an agricultural digging stick more than a spear, which could connect the figure to fertility and successful planting. A carved channel also runs toward the figure, possibly to receive liquid offerings. The art at Chavin worked the same way. It rarely gave viewers a simple picture. Instead, it fused human, feline, bird, and serpent elements into images that were dense, shifting, and hard to fully understand at first glance. This was not decoration in the modern sense. It helped create a world where elite religious knowledge looked special, hidden, and powerful. If only trained interpreters could fully read the imagery, that itself became a source of authority. The underground galleries were not silent either. One of the most fascinating parts of modern research on Chavin focuses on sound. Archaeologists and acoustics researchers have studied how the site changed the way sound moved through its interior spaces. The galleries had acoustic properties that could intensify and redirect what people heard. Researchers have also studied the role of putudus, which were marine shell trumpets found at the site. Their sounds may have echoed through the temple in ways that felt uncanny and disorienting. That matters, because it suggests ritual power here was built not only through what people saw, but through what they heard. In other words, Chavin may have spoken to pilgrims through darkness, echo, resonance, and carefully managed access. Water probably played a role too. The site included internal drains and a hydraulic system, and scholars have argued that these were part of ritual life, not just practical engineering. The builders knew how to move water through the stone complex. In a place where sound, movement, and hidden interiors mattered so much, flowing water could have added another layer to the experience. It could be heard, but not seen. It could produce vibration, echo, and the feeling that the temple itself was somehow alive. There is also growing evidence that ritual at Chavin involved psychoactive plants. That does not prove every dramatic claim people make online, but it does strengthen the idea that ritual specialists may have used altered states as part of controlled ceremonial experience. Recent research reported direct evidence of psychoactive plant residues on ritual inhaling tools from the site. When you place that evidence next to the architecture, the sound research, the isolated galleries, and the strange visual symbolism, Chavin starts to look less like a static ruin and more like a machine for producing religious awe. So what exactly was Chavin politically? That is one of the biggest questions, and historians have to be careful here. There is no surviving text from the site that explains its hierarchies step by step. But scholars have argued that Chavin offers a window into how early forms of durable authority could emerge without the obvious spectacle of kings carved on every wall. Religious elites may have used control of sacred knowledge, architecture, and ceremony to persuade people that they possessed special access to cosmic power. A system like that does not need a giant conquering empire to matter. It can still shape regions far beyond the temple itself. And Chavin did. Its artistic and ideological influence spread across much of northern and central Peru, which is exactly why the site holds such an important place in the study of Andean civilization. Then it faded. By around 200 BCE, Chavin de Huantar had declined. Scholars still debate why. Some point to broader social and political shifts. Others note environmental pressures and the difficult mountain setting around the site. What matters is that Chavin did not vanish because it was unimportant. It declined after helping define what monumental religion, ritual authority, and sacred architecture could look like in the ancient Andes. Its visual language and religious weight outlived the height of the site itself. And that is why Chavin works so well as a story. This is not ancient South America reduced to a list of dates and artifacts. This is a place where people built underground galleries beneath a mountain temple and filled them with darkness, carved gods, ritual sound, moving water, and altered consciousness. It is the story of how authority can be built not only by force, but by making people feel that they have stepped into a world controlled by someone closer to the divine than they are. That is the real power of Chavin. Not fake mystery, real human history. And it is one of the most gripping chapters in the ancient Andes. And remember, friends, like, subscribe, and share. Come ride this timeline with me.